Hi everyone, it's Laura from Crafty Not Shifty and welcome to my 10 cards 1 kit video featuring the Love from Lizzie May 2017 card kit. So first of all, I've cut down some of the paper. I'm making a slightly smaller card with this first one here, and I'm actually using an additional stamp which is from So Susie Stamps. I thought that this vintage hot air balloon matched really well with one of the vellum pieces that came in the kit, so I stamped that out in Versamark a couple times, and I'm just adding some copper coloured perfect pearls. I'm just pouncing that on top of the card, and wherever that the Versamark ink is, the perfect pearls will stick, and then you just lightly mist it with water and it will set it so it stays on the card, and I think it makes a really nice background. So when I was cutting this vellum piece, I managed to tear some of it. It was just my clumsiness with my paper trimmer. So I embraced it, and I went ahead and tore all of the edges around the vellum piece to make it more of a sort of an accent on the project rather than a mistake. And then I wanted to try these clear foam dots. So with vellum it's quite difficult to stick it down, or it can be sometimes because you want to try and hide the adhesive, because vellum is obviously transparent. So you can see them where the vellum's plain, but where there's a pattern, for the most part you can't really see them. So I stuck them down behind each of the letters and behind the coloured parts of the balloon. I did have a bit of a hard time getting the backing off these particular glue dots, but they are a good way to get some dimension when you're using vellum, and they mostly hide. Okay, so straight into the second card. I've got one of the orange card bases, so this is just one of the A4 sheets of paper cut in half and then folded in half, and I've cut down a piece of the pattern paper that was included in the kit, and then I'm going to go ahead and use some of the stickers. So if you haven't seen it yet, I do have an unboxing video for this card kit on my channel, and you can see all of the contents. There are some things included in the kit that I didn't even get around to using because there's so much in there, so do go ahead and check that out if you haven't seen what's in the kit already. So I stuck down that piece there just as a little accent across the bottom third of the card, and then I stuck down some more of the patterned paper, and I'm just going ahead and taking one of the stickers and adding some foam tape onto the back of it just to raise that up and give it a little bit more interest, and peeling off the backing and sticking it down. So as with all of the Love from Lizzie kits, there are some Nouveau drops included. I forget the particular name of this colour. Let me take a look. It's on my desk here. Oh, it's the wrong one. Let me take a look. So Sugared Almond. So I went ahead and added a few drops. I actually did this and wiped them off because I made a bit of a mess of it, and I was getting a lot of peaks in the drops, and I just found that if I shook the bottle before I used it, I got a much better effect. So if you're having any difficulty, I definitely suggest the same thing. Okay, so the third card, as you can see, I've applied adhesive to the card base, and I'm adding this pattern here that's got like the vintage typewriters and telephones and some like vinyl records, and just cutting off the excess. I think the patterns that were included in this month's kit actually make it really easy to pull the cards together. They're so nice on their own. You don't need much else to sort of bring the card together. So again, I'm just taking a couple more of these stickers, and there were 4 of these vinyl stickers. I ended up only using 3 along with the cassette tape, and same thing for all of them. I applied double-sided foam tape, and I really like this particular one. This is by 3M, and you can cut it really easily with scissors, but it also tears by hand, which is nice when your desk is as messy as mine and sometimes you can't find your scissors, or you just want to be a little bit lazy and just be able to tear it by hand. So I peeled the adhesive release tape off the back of the cassette, and I think the cassette is just so cute. I really love it. So I stuck that down in the top corner, and then just added 3 of the little vinyl records. You could just stick these down flat to the card, but I think it's a little bit more interesting when you've got some depth and dimension. So once I had that third one stuck down, I just wanted to add something else into the bottom corner there. So I just took another one of the stickers, and I'm using that sort of as my sentiment, again with some double-sided foam tape. So for card 4, I'm taking another one of the vellum pieces. So there's a couple of sheets of vellum with some like foiled patterns included, and I really like this one with the whale. It's got that beautiful whale and then this big sort of foiled splash. And I decided to use my craft knife and my self-healing mat just to cut around the edge on one side of the vellum, and then go ahead and apply adhesive all over the back of the card base and use another one of the patterned papers. So I'm just deciding exactly where to stick it to make sure I get the exact sort of part of the pattern where I want it. So I'm just flipping that round and trying to decide where I want it to sit, and then I'll just press that down firmly and go ahead and trim off the excess with my paper trimmer. So this time to glue the vellum down, and actually this is true for the rest of the cards, I completely abandoned the idea of using the 3D squares, and I just used a glue pen instead. The 3D squares, they're great, but they were just a little bit fiddly, and because I knew I was making 10 cards, I decided for ease to use something that was going to be a little bit quicker. But I would recommend the 3D, the clear 3D squares if it's a particular project and you really want to have that extra dimension. But for making 10 cards fairly quickly, I decided it wasn't for me for this project. So I've just gone ahead and smoothed all of this down, and then I'll trim the whole card just to make it match the size of the panel a little bit better. So once I've got that all trimmed, I decided that the vellum that was on the right hand side, I decided I wanted to cut some of that off. There was a couple of reasons why. I like the pattern paper that's underneath, and I wanted a little bit more of it to show through. So I like how you can see some of the pattern paper behind the splash, and then you can see some of it filtered by the vellum. But then on that right hand side, I decided that I wanted to be able to see a little bit more of the pattern paper without the vellum. I hope I'm making sense. So because there's no glue behind these parts, I just very carefully with my craft knife, I'm hardly pressing at all, I'm just sort of scoring along the vellum, and then it just lifted away really nicely. And I was really pleased with how that turned out. So you can see the paper a little bit more clearly, and it brings out the sort of text pattern in the paper just here, and I like how that coordinates with the text on the whale. And I love the whale. I mean, look at his little crown. I think it's really pretty. So yeah, I was pleased with how this one turned out. Moving on, I think, are we up to 5 now? So we're halfway through, and again, I'm just applying adhesive. I use a lot of adhesive. I don't know, I like to think that when I send people cards, they keep hold of them. They're not necessarily as temporary as maybe a store-bought card would be, because it's handmade. I like to think that people have a box somewhere or a drawer and they throw them in there. So, I want them to last and I want them to hold up. So if anyone's wondering why I use so much adhesive, that's kind of why. So again, I'm just using my paper trimmer to trim off the excess. And I think this particular paper is probably my favourite out of all of the patterns that came in this kit. I really like that sort of distressed brickwork. So I decided to keep this fairly simple. I took one of the vellum frames, and again I'm just using a glue pen to apply some glue behind the patterned area of the vellum. So that'll keep the glue somewhat hidden, so you won't be able to see the streaks of the glue when you're looking at the front of the card. So I'll just turn that over and press that down sort of centered. And then once that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and take my craft knife and just cut out the centre. So because I've got this stuck down, so I've got the vellum, the patterned paper, and then the cardstock, I did have to press quite firmly to get that all cut. But I just took my time with it, and yeah, I was able to get a nice clean cut around that window. So I wanted to be able to have something on the inside of my card that would poke through, and I decided to use this elephant sticker, which is a similar oval shape, and I lined that up by holding it against the front of the card, and when I was happy with the position I just closed the card to stick it down, and that was the easiest way to get it exactly where I wanted. So I've took some of the thin double-sided adhesive that came in the kit. This is a really nice roll of tape actually, because it's really nice and thin, and I use that along with some of the blue foil just to add a nice little foiled line at the bottom there. and then I added this little banner. So the banner itself has like a couple of staples like printed on the banner, and I'd seen in the Love from Lizzie Facebook group that somebody had gone over those on one of their projects with real staples, and I really liked how that looked. I can't remember exactly who it was, but if you're watching this video, leave a comment below. But yeah, that inspired me to do something similar, and I did that on my project. So I'm using some of the peel-offs here just to spell out Happy Father's Day. I mean, this card could be for anything, really. It could be a thinking of you card, particularly because of the elephant and the whole, like, elephant never forgets. Could be a birthday card, but yeah, I decided to go with Father's Day. So for this project, it's not necessarily a card. I've taken a paper piercer and I'm just poking some holes through one of the tags, and I'm using these letters that came in the kit. So these letters have got a push pin, and you go ahead and poke them through and open up the split pin on the back, and then they actually sort of swing on your project, so they're really nice. They add like some fun interest. You're kind of supposed to use them for Father's Day, but I realised that if I played about with it a little bit, I could spell world's greatest dog instead of dad. So yeah, sorry about that, no one told my dad. But I decided to go with world's greatest dog, and it's for my dog rather than world's greatest dad for my dad. Which he is the world's greatest dad, but you know, I wanted something for my dog. So I've rounded the corners of this tag, and then I was going to put this inside the photo frame, but I decided because of that like swing action, I wanted it to be on the front. So here's a picture of my dog Dexter, and I'm just adding some double-sided sticky tape to the front of this frame, and then when I've peeled that off, I can stick this tag on the front, and he can proudly be displayed as the world's greatest dog. So for my next card, and it is a card this time, I decided to try something a little bit different. I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but I like to challenge myself sometimes, particularly when using kits, to do something that I haven't done before. So I started off by sticking down a full sheet of the pattern paper again. I did that a lot with this kit. Usually I'll cut the pieces down so you've got like a base layer and then a mat on top, but I really like the patterns, so I just use them as full sheets most of the time. So what I'm doing here is adding some multi-medium matte, and I waited for that to dry until it was tacky. While I was waiting, I added some more of that sort of chevron sticker. I added that along the left hand side, and then when that glue was just tacky to the touch rather than wet, I laid the foil on top, and I found that if you press it down it will stick and you'll get sort of a distressed foil look, which is exactly what I was going for, so I'm really glad that that worked. So that's it was certainly a different way for me to use foil. I've used it before with laminating machines and a mink machine, but I've never used it with glue tape, and I definitely never used it with multi-medium matte. So once I'd done that, I just added the Believe sentiment sticker, and I had that hanging off the left hand side, and I trimmed off the excess, and then I'm just adding some of these blue gems that came in the kit. They come in a couple of different sizes, and they coordinate really well. Okay, so that's it for this card. Moving on to the next one, I decided to I don't know what I was thinking. So first of all, I stamped the background using the film strip stamp, and my stamping was kind of wonky and it wasn't great. And it started off okay, and then the card completely took a different turn, and I realised that my colours didn't coordinate and I wasn't very happy with it, but I managed to save it, and I left the whole process in just so you can see, you know, everybody makes mistakes, but there's always a way to get around it and to fix it. Sometimes you have to step away and come back to your project the next day, sometimes it comes to you straight away. So I used the turtle, that's another one of the vellum pieces, and added it to one of the frame stickers, and then used a couple of the ticket stubs in the bottom right hand corner. I then took one of the tags and I applied adhesive all over. I cut off the string and I added another piece of the vellum just to give the tag a bit of interest, and I placed that down and then trimmed off the excess. So the card started to look a little bit more you know, the I don't know, my colours just sort of changed. I brought in more of that brown, and suddenly it just didn't really go with the green, and I just kept going with it, and then I stopped and I looked at it, and I was just like, what have I done? Like, none of this coordinates, it doesn't make sense. So I had a think, and I thought, well, you know, I really like the panel and everything else. I think it's just that background that I've stamped. I really like the film strip stamp. I just think it didn't work with the rest of the card that I ended up creating. So I not so carefully peeled it off, but because this cardstock is really good quality, the card's actually fine in the end. It doesn't feel flimsy or thin at all. So I placed down another piece of pattern paper, and then again I just trimmed off the excess. And once I'd done that, I found that the front panel sort of worked a lot better with the colours. So I managed to save the whole piece, which I was glad about because I love that little turtle. I think it's really sweet. Okay, so I think we can all agree it looks a lot better now. And then I added just another one of those banner stickers. Stuck that down in the top right hand corner and just tucked one of the tails underneath the brown tag, and then trimmed off some of the excess. So this next card, I shared a sneak peek in the Love from Lizzie Facebook group. This card just makes me happy whenever I look at it. It made me laugh while I was creating it. I was actually laughing out loud, which probably says more about me than it should, really. I'm quite childish, but there we go. And the Facebook post actually shared a conversation about the It's For You, and how when you read it, you kind of use a somewhat silly octopus voice. So it was nice to know I'm not the only crazy person out there. So I took the glasses and one of the moustache stamps, and I used Stays On ink for this because the vellum is a slick surface. And I managed to stamp those, you know, perfectly on the vellum, but I did have to use that Stays On ink. And the octopus does only have like one eye printed. He's meant to be more sort of side on than profile, but I coloured in an empty space and created a new eye for him on the left hand side, and I just think he suits those glasses and the moustache so much. I really liked this card. And again, I think the different elements and the pattern papers in this kit just make it really easy to bring a card together. You don't have to do an awful lot. This card only took a couple of minutes to make, and it makes me smile. So I finished it off with some of those blue gems, added some of them onto the tentacles and around the different areas of the card. Okay, so for this last one, I decided to try a technique that has been quite popular recently. Jennifer Maguire shared a video, and as with anything that Jennifer shares, it's sort of taken off, and I've seen a lot of people trying this technique where you either cut lots of thin strips of paper, or you run some paper through a shredder, and then you create your own striped pattern. I've seen people doing it an awful lot with like rainbow colours, but I decided to do it with one of the patterned pieces of paper from the card kit. So I've sped you up here. There's not an awful lot to it. I'm basically just laying down different pieces of this patterned paper, just kind of covering this white background, working my way down. You know, I made sure that none of the pieces were sort of naturally adjacent to each other in the pattern, so the pattern didn't continue, and just lay them across. I did find that I ran out of strips of paper, but it was fine because I just flipped the piece over and cut off some of the excess, and then I had enough left to go ahead and fill in those bottom few sections. So once I had the whole piece covered, I just put it in my paper trimmer and trimmed off all the edges. It's really satisfying to kind of do that step at the end where you cut off all those extra pieces, and it goes from looking kind of a little bit messy to looking like a really nice background. The piece of paper was beautiful on its own, but I thought I'd give this a try and create something that would look a little bit different, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out actually. So I had this panel and I decided to cut it not quite in half, but into two different sections that I could use on my cards. So I'm going to go ahead and use this this wider section first, but I will bring in that other section in just a minute. So I used my glue pen because it was what was on my desk, and I applied this to a craft card base, and all of the card bases in this video are made using the card that came in the kit. So I added this piece and it's hanging off the edge at the moment, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the excess. I think this would be a really good way to use up any scraps that you have, because the whole kit sort of has coordinating colours. I think the scraps from all the different pieces would work really well. So I finished it off with a sticker, and that is my 10 cards complete. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please let me know in the comments below which card was your favourite, or give me a thumbs up on YouTube to let YouTube know that you want to see more videos that look like this. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Love from Lizzie Facebook group and to the shop, and if you haven't already checked it out, I encourage you to do so. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon for more card making and craft videos. That's all from me. Bye for now. On screen right now you can see 2 more videos from myself. If you haven't already watched them, then go ahead and click on the links and you'll be taken straight through to the videos. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.